Welcome back, everybody, to Stars and Strikes, the road to Qatar 2022. My name is Chaz Messman. It's just me today. Ryan could not make it because he had some school commitments, and that's why we haven't been able to put out as many videos as we would have liked to of late. Both of us are getting going here at college, but I'm excited to be back with you talking World Cup qualifying because the U.S. men's national team is going to be back on the field in World Cup qualifying next week. We kick things off against El Salvador on September 2nd. I'm super excited for it. We're going to be bringing you all kinds of content surrounding that. But today we're just getting everything started. We're going to start off, like I said, with some squad reactions, a couple of match previews, and then we'll round things up with some transfer talk and some updates from a lot of the guys around the globe. And like I said, we're just going to get things started with that initial squad reaction. So Greg Berhalter put out a 26-man squad that's going to be there for these the start of World Cup qualifying for that El Salvador game, and then on to Canada and the following game. Couple really big surprises in that. First off, Christian Pulisic is in the squad, which is huge. Obviously, Christian just tested positive for COVID. He is currently in quarantine. Greg Berhalter says he is day-to-day and is questionable for the upcoming matches. If we can have him, obviously, we all know how important that is going to be because he's our best player. When he's on the field, the U.S. men's national team simply is just on another level. Also, not to mention, Yunus Musa, in terms of injury, is out. He's still recovering from that over with Valencia. Gyasi Zardes is out with an injury. But looking at some guys that got in, most notably, how about Ricardo Pepe choosing the U.S. men's national team over Mexico, being in the squad for these upcoming qualifiers? And this is probably an inclusion that has a little bit of both of that. He deserves to be in the squad because he's on fire over in MLS for FC Dallas, and also getting him locked up away from Mexico, keeping him in. Obviously, we just lost David Ochoa. We lost Jonathan Gonzalez recently, also Efrain Alvarez. So there've been a little bit of tug and pull going on between these two national teams. And this is probably the pick of the bunch because Ricardo Pepe, as I said before, has been on fire for MLS. And you can't really argue with his inclusion given the current striker situation. Pepe's got 9 goals in MLS this season for FC Dallas. And when you got guys like Daryl DK, who haven't really been performing to their standards that we've seen from them as of late for Orlando City, and having his struggles that he had in the Gold Cup. Obviously, Matthew Hoppe is not in this squad. His club situation still up in the air. So I believe that's probably where more that is, because he's one of the other surprises where you'd think, oh, Matthew Hoppe, he was phenomenal in the Gold Cup. He was one of the standout performers, but not in this squad. What's up? I think it has to do with the fact that he's currently still with Schalke over in Bundesliga 2, but he's trying to get a move to one of Europe's top 5 leagues. Moving on, another one of the surprise inclusions, James Sands. He's a guy that really struggled at times during the Gold Cup, especially when competition started to ramp up, particularly in that final against Mexico. I still have some question marks over his defensive ability. Obviously, he's a good distributor of the ball. However, it seems like at times when he's under pressure, the jitters can get to him and he makes mistakes. Miles Robinson did a really good job in the Gold Cup of covering for him. However, in qualifying, when it's even to a higher standard and competition and the physicality gets going even higher, I have question marks whether he's going to be able to live up to it. Also, George Bello from Atlanta United. Obviously, he had a really good Gold Cup. Especially had a really nice final. He's still a very inexperienced player. I don't expect him to be a starter. However, when Reggie Cannon got left off this list, I was a little bit surprised. Obviously, Reggie didn't start every game in the Gold Cup. However, he was a part of that Nations League squad. And when you watch these two guys, it feels like Reggie Cannon is just a little bit more along in his development. George Bello is still only 18 years old, obviously really talented. However, not a ton of experience, no World Cup qualifying experience from him. So we'll have to see exactly what his involvement in these first couple of matches looks like. Sam Vines was left out of the squad. I think a lot of that probably is down to the fact that he just got to move over to Belgium with Royal Antwerp. So he's probably still trying to get settled there. And that's a big kind of overarching thing when you look at this squad, is there are a lot of guys that maybe would have been in contention to be in this squad, but aren't because of their club situations. I mean, you think about Gianluca Busio, Tanner Tessman, who both have now moved over to Venezia. Matt Miazga was also left out of the squad. He's just secured a move on loan over to Deportivo Alaves in Spain. So a couple other things getting going. Couple other surprise inclusions, you could say, go to Conrad De La Fuente, another guy who maybe we thought Matthew Hoppe would have been in front of him. However, Conrad has started the season really fast for Marseille. He started all 3 games over in Ligue 1 for them. He got an assist on the opening day, and he's been playing very, very well. He still only has 1 cap for the U.S., so not a huge experience from him either. Just like a lot of this squad, there's only, I believe, 6 players that have World Cup qualifying experience in the team. So inexperience is going to be one of the big stories, regardless of who you look at and where you see it in the team. So Conrad De La Fuente gets in. I expect him to probably be a big option coming off the bench. We know what he can do in a one-on-one situation, how dynamic he is on the ball. He still has some growing to do tactically and in terms of his link-up play, but he's a very promising player, and it's exciting to see him getting some good first-team action for Marseille. A couple guys that also got left off that I wrote down is Chris Richards. We brought a lot of center backs, and when you look at the center backs that we brought, I'm surprised that Chris Richards isn't in that. His club situation isn't really up in the air. It looks like he's going to stay at Bayern Munich. We know he's in first team training. He doesn't start every game, of course. However, he does get bit parts and minutes. And to say that Chris Richards isn't one of the 4 or 5 best center backs in the player pool, especially when you have guys like James Sands in this squad, I'm just shocked. That's the one, at least defensively, that I really don't agree with. When you look at the guys in the center back options, it kind of leans you to think that we might be playing a 3 center back type system, or a back 5, back 3, however you want to call it, because you have Mark McKenzie, John Brooks, 2 guys who probably at the moment we would say maybe the 2 starters that we have. If everyone's healthy, we saw those are the 2 guys who played in the Nations League. Then you have Tim Ream, a left-sided center back, left back option. He's obviously just in there for his experience. 45 caps, 30. He's into his 30s now. So he's definitely one of the more experienced teams. Miles Robinson, who was absolutely sensational and arguably one of the players of the Gold Cup outside of the goalkeeper position. And then you have James Sands and Walker Zimmerman. And like I said, I think Chris Richards has to slot in above James Sands and Walker Zimmerman, because I just think his talent and his ability to defend and in possession is just superior to both of those. And he's training with Bayern Munich every single day. So I think he's at a higher level. Hopefully we'll see him get worked back into the thing. Maybe there's still a little bit of club uncertainty that hasn't quite gotten out, if he's trying to maybe go back to Hoffenheim on loan or secure a permanent move somewhere else in the Bundesliga. Well, let's move on to the goalkeeper position. I know I'm kind of bouncing around. That's kind of what happens when you don't have a co-host. And this is the first time I've ever hosted a show like this by myself. Thank you for bearing with me. But Ethan Horvath, Zach Steffen, and Matt Turner. Looking at all 3 of those names, and at the moment, it looks like a complete job that's up for grabs. This is an open goalkeeper competition. There's 3 matches. It's very possible that we could see each of these guys get 3 games. Ethan Horvath just secured a move to Nottingham Forest, so hopefully he's going to be getting some first-time action. Matt Turner is the guy with the hot hand. We saw him be awesome at the Gold Cup. He was the player of the tournament in my eyes from this team. We saw what he did in the MLS All-Star game a couple nights ago. He's been doing really well for New England Revolution. And then you have Zach Steffen, the incumbent, the guy who's probably the most talented out of the 3. In my eyes, I think he's the best. However, has he been playing enough football? That's the big question. Obviously, he's Ederson's number 2. And Greg's going to have a decision on his plate, because all 3 of these guys are very, very capable options to play. And I think they're going forward. It's going to be a tough decision for him. Right now, if I still had to say, I think Zach Steffen is the best of them. And if he's sharp, I think he has to start, especially with what he's able to do with the ball at his feet and his distribution, especially in a lot of these games where we're going to have a majority of the possession. It's going to be important to have Zach Steffen and have your goalkeeper be able to play out from the back and start possession going forward. And then when you look at the midfield, no real surprises there after Moose's injury. Obviously not included, but you have Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, Kellen Acosta, Christian Roldan, and Sebastian Lletget. If you had to say there were going to be 5-6 midfielders, I'd probably say these are the 5 or 6 that I would expect to be in this squad given Yunus Musa's injury at the moment. And then going on to the forward position, we already talked about Ricardo Pepe getting in his first inclusion with the senior national team. You also have Brendan Aronson, who's been on fire to start the season for RB Salzburg, scored the winning goal to get them into the Champions League. So we're going to see Brendan playing some Champions League football this season, which is super cool. Conrad, we already talked about Conrad De La Fuente. Jordan Pefok, who we've seen put a couple of really nice performances for the national team and for young boys as of late. Christian Pulisic, who is in, as we said at the start of the show. Giovanni Reyna, who, shout out to Gio Reyna, has now become the youngest player in the history of the Bundesliga to make 50 appearances. So he's making waves, not just as an American, but as anyone in one of the best leagues over in Europe. We know what a player he is, and I'm so excited to see him and Christian and all the other guys link up and see what they can do in World Cup qualifying going forward. Josh Sargent, who's just made his move over to Norwich City. We're going to talk about that a little later to close up the show. And then Tim Weah from Lille. So no real surprises from the forward position outside of maybe Ricardo Pepe and Conrad De La Fuente. And I think this is a strong squad, as I mentioned. It's obviously a young squad, but it's a squad that's good enough to beat all of the other competitions that we have. And when you look at that competition, we have the opening game against El Salvador. We have all the momentum in CONCACAF right now. This team is flying high with confidence. All these guys who are in the Nations League have confidence, and then you have all the guys who are in the Gold Cup that have all this confidence. While we might not have been performing and playing at the best and at the capacity that this team can perform at, the reality was they were getting the job done. They played Mexico twice. They beat Mexico twice. They were able to grind out results. And at the end of the day, the result is all that matters, especially in qualifying in CONCACAF, where you're going to be on the road. You're going to be playing in some crappy environment. It's going to be hostile. It's not going to be ideal. The other team is going to be super physical, and you just got to be able to power through. And this team knows how to do that. They know how to win. And that's why I think all of us should be super duper confident in this team going into qualifying. And we have to be confident in the manager as well, because yes, I've questioned him. I've questioned some of his tactics, as have many of you, and Ryan has as well, and a lot of all the pundits. However, at the end of the day, he's been getting the job done, and we have to give our applaud to where it's necessary, or we got to give applause to where praise is due. It's funny when you're the only one talking how your voice gets a little bit more tired, but you know what, we're powering through. It's a Friday. TGIF going to a concert after this. Dierks Bentley. Never been to a country concert. Not a big country fan myself, but heard it's going to be fun. I got a lot of friends going. I'm excited for it. First time being able to go to a big event like that since the start of reopening things from COVID. So I'm excited for that. But let's shift focus back to El Salvador before we lose tracks and the train is way off the tracks. I completely messed that up, but you know the drill. Let's get rolling. Like I said, we have all the momentum going into this, and this team should be confident. This is an El Salvador team that the U.S. should dominate possession. I'm expecting it to be, if we can get ahead early, it could get ugly for El Salvador, but we know they're going to try and get physical with us. The only question is, who's going to be on the field for that? Given the squad that Greg's taken and all the center backs, I lean towards thinking that he might go back to a back three, similar to what we saw at times during the Nations League. However, I still think that a back four with a 4-3-3 is our best thing, but just given Yunus Musa's injury and everything, maybe the best option for this team is a back five. I mean, in my eyes, our best 11 at the moment in terms of everyone being healthy. What is the best 11 for the U.S.? You got Zach Steffen in goal still. Serginho Dest at right back. John Brooks, Mark McKenzie, and then Anthony Robinson over on the left. Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, Yunus Musa, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent, and then Christian Pulisic out on the other wing. But obviously there's no Yunus Musa. So maybe Greg tries to do a back five with something like maybe Brooks, McKenzie, and then we saw Tim Ream in that role. We could also see maybe a Miles Robinson slot in there on that left-sided. John Brooks is also a left-footed center back, so maybe he does that. However, I kind of seem to like him in the middle, being that he's the general back there. Tim Ream is older and has only 2 more caps than him, but in terms of the leader from the back and who it seems like is the guy commanding all the step forwards, all the covers and balances, that's John Brooks. He's the best center back that we have. I don't really think that's really in doubt. We're going to get to see him play Champions League football this season with Wolfsburg. That was a tough one. So that's going to be really exciting for him. And, I think you could probably say he's our most important defender in terms of defensively. Obviously, Serginho Dest, we know what he can do going forward, all the flashiness, the chances he can create. And I think he's going to be huge, especially in this opening match, being able to whip crosses in, whether he plays from the right side or the left. That's the big question, whether it's going to be DeAndre Yedlin or Anthony Robinson slotting in as the other wingback or fullback, depending on what formation Greg decides to go with. And like we said, who's the number one for this first game? It's a toss-up, because I could see Zach Steffen being put in there, and that's the guy who I think is the best, and I think a lot of people do believe that. But is Greg going to give the other guys a chances in big qualifying matches too? We'll just have to wait and see. The number 9 position has been a big problem, or a thing of thought. I think that we play best when Josh Sargent is there. He's not had the goal record, I think, and he needs to probably get some more confidence in front of goal. And we would hope to see that maybe that comes as he starts to mature within Europe and in the Premier League, playing for Norwich City. But this team plays best when Sargent's on the field. I think he allows Gio Reyna and Christian Pulisic to be at their best with his link-up play, his ability to make those runs into the channels to clear up space for our wingers to cut inside and do what they do best. So I think it still has to be Josh Sargent, but there's an argument to be put out for maybe Jordan Pefok. Obviously we used to be known as Sibachu, but he's Pefok now. He stepped into the Nations League, scored a winning goal. And that's all you can ask for. He looked pretty good in the next friendly as well. Ricardo Pepe, we said he's been on fire for FC Dallas, and he's going to get some option at some point during these 3 games, because the reality is a lot of these guys have club commitments too, and they're not going to be wanting to play 3 games. And this is a new thing because of COVID. These fixtures are getting squished together, so you need to be able to use your entire squad. So a lot of these guys are going to be called on coming off the bench to play big minutes and maybe even getting a start. It's very possible, especially with Christian Pulisic's status still being up in the air regarding his quarantine and everything. Who's going to be that other winger if Christian is unable to go for that first game? And I tend to think it's probably maybe going to be a guy like Tim Webb, who has the experience, over a guy like Conrad De La Fuente, maybe Shiv Gio off to the left, throw in Tim Weah on the right. Tim can obviously, we know he's a versatile player, so he could probably play on that left side as well. Maybe a Brendan Aronson comes in. He's been absolutely on fire for RB Salzburg. And maybe that's, now that I think about it, that's probably the more likely of the two for Aronson to slot in. And then Tim Weah to be that first guy coming off the bench. Who knows? Maybe he does slot in to the number 9 role too, because that's a position that he's played before for the national team and for the youth national teams. And yeah, moving on. Let's see what we got. Expectations for how this team is going to play. I discussed the different possibilities that we could see going with the back 3. I think a lot of it has to do with the overlaps from our 2 wingbacks. Anthony Robinson has started fast for Fulham in the championship. He's got himself an assist. He's got a good cross on him. And then obviously we know what DeAndre Yedlin and his speed can do to an opposing team. And then Serginho Dest is filthy. I mean, the dude's just nasty, and we all know that. And going forward, he's one of the most promising young fullbacks in Europe right now. So I think those guys are going to be key. Trying to do the overlap when a guy like Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, when they try and cut inside, their overlaps are going to be huge. And maybe late runs from Weston McKennie that we've seen a lot of his goals coming from. We saw set pieces be a major asset for this team, both in the Nations League and in the Gold Cup. I'd expect that to continue. We have physicality from those center backs, size on a lot of these nations, and we got to take that we got to use that to our advantage. And I think Greg will. There are a lot of really good set piece takers on this team. We saw Kellen Acosta in the Gold Cup do it. Gio Reyna, his delivery of the ball is sensational. He's probably one of the best young players in terms of crossing in all of Europe. So he's going to be a big guy for that. And then, like I said, this team's going to have a lot of the possession in these opening matches. It's not going to be really a back and forth game. Maybe against Canada can bring some stuff. We saw what they were able to do against Mexico in the Gold Cup a little bit. They've got some good players, obviously, with the likes of Kyle Larin and Alphonso Davies, a couple other guys in there too. But I'm very confident going into these three opening matches that the U.S. should get 3 up, 3 down, 3 points, and walk away with their 9 points out of 3 games at the top of the table, and setting yourself up for a really good qualifying cycle. And we can't forget, the U.S. have won 3 out of the last 5 World Cup qualifying cycles. They've beaten Mexico. Obviously, we're really disappointed to not make that last World Cup, which sucked. I mean, it brought a ton of negativity on, but it's so cool to see all this positivity going out. And I think that's the attitude we have to going into, because these players are a new generation. It's our golden generation. We've never had a product like this, a player pool like this. And I mean, I just can't wait to see them play in more competitive matches, because from what we've seen before with these guys, we got 2 trophies out of them. One sec, just going to take one quick little water break, and then we'll get into some transfer news and stuff to wrap up the show. And we're back. And I mentioned we're going to start. I mentioned earlier at the start of this show about Josh Sargent and his move over to Norwich City. And that's where we're going to start. He scored his first 2 goals for Norwich in the EFL Cup, his first start for them a couple days ago. He came off the bench in the opening 2 Premier League games. And for him, it seems like he's just trying to get settled. I think it was definitely a good move for him to get out of the Bundesliga 2. He's a player that is, to be fair, he's better than the Bundesliga 2. And for him, it's all about scoring goals. Obviously, style-wise, it's not maybe what the move that we wanted to have him see. We were talked about guys like Bayer Leverkusen, maybe more of an attacking team. But this Norwich team does sometimes play some attacking football. They have some really good creative pieces in that team. Maybe he can learn a little bit from Timu Pukki, who's been around the block. He's scored goals in the Premier League before. They got Todd Cantwell. I can't think of they got Max Aarons. That's the name I was thinking of. So there are some players in this Norwich team that can do some things going forward. And hopefully he just starts to get more consistent minutes. And that's the big thing for him: consistent minutes and chances in front of goal. And if he can develop that, he has all the tools that you want physically, technically, mentally. I think he's ready for it too, to be an elite center forward in Europe. And hopefully he can do that for Norwich and for the U.S. men's national team. We talked about Conrad De La Fuente and his fast start for Marseille. Matt Miazga's gone on loan to Deportivo Alaves. Owen Otasoe has left Wolverhampton Wanderers over to Club Brugge. So hopefully for him, that means more first-team minutes and consistent first-team minutes. We saw him here and there for Wolves this past season, but no real consistency. And at the end of the day, he's probably just not getting in at the moment as a young player over the likes of an established internationals like Ruben Neves and João Moutinho in the same kind of roles that Wolves have. Sam Vines, as we mentioned, over to Royal Antwerp. And in that move, I think it's more similar to the move that we saw Reggie Cannon or Mark McKenzie make as of late. Just that first move over to Europe, to a spot where he's going to be able to play in Belgium. Getting that first European action is going to be big, because the reality is the game is just different over there. And that's going to be good for him. And maybe he can have maybe a year or two there. He's still a really young player, year or two there, and then get a move, maybe one of the Europe top 5 leagues, or take a step up over there. Gianluca Busio and Tanner Tessman, obviously, over to Venezia. Hopefully we'll see them start to get some first team action. Obviously, Venezia just got promoted up to Serie A. Gianluca Busio today, actually, at the day of recording, Friday, what's the day? 27th, Friday the 27th. He's in line to make his first start for them. Tanner Tessman made a couple appearances already this season. And hopefully for them, they can get settled in and start playing some consistent first team football, because if they can, that's going to be huge for their development. We know that Italy is a good place for young midfielders to develop, especially defensively and technically in terms of their ability in possession of the ball. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they got going on of that. ESPN just picked up Serie A games, so it's going to be a lot more accessible to watch some more of our American boys over in Serie A. Ethan Horvath, we mentioned, move over to Nottingham Forest. So hopefully for him, he can start getting some consistent play. Obviously, last season, he was the deputy to Simon Mignolet over in Belgium. So hopefully he can establish himself as the number 1 in the championship. Also, I didn't have it on my list, but looks like Brian Reynolds is going to stay at Roma under Jose Mourinho. Mourinho has said to be a big fan of Reynolds. So hopefully he can continue to develop and learn more from one of the best managers that Europe has seen. I mean, obviously Jose's had his struggles in recent years, but you can't argue with the guy's resume, especially in terms of defensively. And, we know Brian Reynolds is very promising going forward with all that speed and that delivery he has on the ball. But if he can develop tactically and defensively, I mean, he's going to be another one of those guys that's like, damn, like he's a darn good player. And this right back pool just keeps getting deeper and deeper. When you look at a guy like Joe Scaley, who we haven't even really talked about on this show, he's getting consistent minutes now over in Germany in the Bundesliga for Borussia Mönchengladbach. He played pretty well against Bayern Munich a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really, really exciting time to be a U.S. men's national team fan. It seems like every day there's more and more good things coming out. A guy getting a move to Europe, someone's interested in them. Caden Clark, we're going to see pretty soon over playing for RB Leipzig with Jesse Marsch. They got a tough Champions League group, but nonetheless, let's see what Jesse Marsch is able to do. It's going to challenge him as a manager. And I can't wait to see what these guys do in qualifying and in the Champions League, in their leagues coming forward. We got the whole host of matches this weekend for guys, and then we're getting rolling. The road to Qatar is well underway. I mean, you could really say that this is the first major checkpoint, is the start of qualifying, and we're going to see what this team is made of. I think they've shown us that they can handle it and that they can overcome obstacles. And I'm extremely confident going into this first match and for qualifying as a whole. If I had to do like a score prediction, I'm saying 4-0 to the red, white, and blue. I think Gio Reyna gets on the score sheet, maybe a Weston McKennie goal here and there. And I think a Josh Sargent goal too. I'm not going to predict a Christian Pulisic goal just because, screw it, he's going to get over COVID. So we got goals from Christian, Gio, Sargent, and McKennie. The big 4 boys going forward, 4-0 to the U.S. Stay tuned for all that we have coming out. Make sure to follow on social. My name is Chaz Messman. I believe my Instagram is Chaz_Messman. And then Chaz Messman in one word is my Twitter handle. Get involved. Interact with us on the YouTube channel, in the comment section below, and on social media. Be sure to be there for those IG live shows, because those are going to be coming for the World Cup qualifying matches. They will be posted on YouTube later. However, if you want it in real time, make sure to go check those out. For Chaz Messman, Ryan Deeb isn't here today, but I'm super excited to get qualifying started, and see you guys next time. Peace. See you soon.